when I'm speaking to COOs or CTOs, anything it may be, I ask one question. I say, awesome, you seem happy, but tell me 18 months from now, what would make the board happy? What would you consider success 18 months from now? How can we reverse engineer that to help, number one, provide that feedback to clients or provide that to our product teams or provide that maybe to my leadership team, my CEO, and let's use OKRs. Let's use command of the message to promote that, to help grow that, and become your champion.
Are you ready for this? Are you ready?
What's up, lifers, and welcome to the Daily Stand-Up with Lifetime Value, where we're giving you fresh new customer success ideas every single day. I got my man Rob with us. Rob, you want to say hi? Rob, you're on mute. JP, do you want to say hi?
I am happy to be here.
Oh, Rob, you want a second chance?
No,
Is it a bad day?
I'm still in pain from my boxing class.
He's got the ice pack on his neck. It looks dainty green ice pack. And we have
I broke my back.
Gurp with us. Gurp, can you say hi, please?
How's everyone? Gurp Singh here.
What's up, Gurp? And I am your host. My name is Dylan Young. Gurp, thank you so much for being here. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Gurp Singh, everyone. Speaking from Inglewood, New Jersey, originally from upstate New York and Buffalo. I am a CS leader by profession, but a man of many different passions and love. I come from a background of equity and finance at Bloomberg and pivoted into customer success over a decade ago. So really happy to be here.
Very cool. Very cool. Bloomberg. I like Bloomberg. Gurp, you know what we do here? We ask every single guest one simple question, and that is, what is on your mind when it comes to customer success? So can you please tell us what that is for you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. It is April 4th, Friday. A lot in the news. People are rightfully panicking, but I think in the world of CS, go-to-market sales, there's a lot of pain. And pain to me means opportunity. And I preface all that by saying, I actually want to talk about 2016. And that was a pivotal moment for me. I come from a background of Indian classical music. My dad's his two brothers. They were world famous before, .com, before the internet, before social media. Indian classical is a small genre, but something that, they were at the height of. And funny enough, they never took advantage of, like I said, social media, harnessing their followers, and slowly but surely, over the course of 2 decades, they fell off the face of the earth. As in, they didn't go anywhere. They weren't reaching anyone. So I mentioned Bloomberg, right? And I preface all this by saying, once again, I'm going to tie this in really nicely into CS. I was working at Bloomberg 2016. I was on the C train going back to Brooklyn. I was living in Bedside at the time. I see an ad for Squarespace, and it hit me. All that pain I was feeling in my personal life, wanting to do something for my family, I started taking action. And that's the one thing I think the best leaders in this world, they do. Even without having a final version of a vision, they start taking action. They start harnessing that pain. Long story short, because I know we only have about, 10 minutes, I took hard drives full of music. This is 2016, by the way. Facebook Live just became a thing, right? YouTube is blowing up. Everyone's starting to focus on building their brand, their equity, using these free tools essentially to gain a following. And this was my passion. After work, I would spend 5 hours. I remember this. It was the best time of my life. Keep in mind, there was a lot of pain. And I got them up on social media. We started doing Facebook Lives. Hundreds of views turns into thousands of views and millions of impressions. I got them up on a website. I used Squarespace. I started building their brand, their equity. People who were following us in the 80s, 90s, 2000s suddenly were like, wait, these guys are back, mixed with a new generation of young followers. If you can teach 3 men, and I say this without any harm in the world, if you can teach 3 men who are in their 60s, who don't even know how to use an iPhone, the value of tapping into something new, challenging yourself, breaking the status quo, you can do anything. And I say all of that because that was my passion. I wanted to find pain. And coming to present day, they just finished a world tour in India. Rolling Stone wrote a couple articles on the family. We're working on a documentary, a book as well. I started this by saying, I'll bring it back to CS. What I do in my personal life bleeds into my professional life as well. To me, there is a world of opportunity every single moment. Anytime you speak to a customer, anytime you meet great individuals like yourselves, we're all looking for what? We're trying to mix our pain with pleasure. and the world is looking for people to stand up. So would love to answer any of your questions and elaborate on that.
Gurp, I just got to say, first of all, what a wild ride you just took us on. The mixing pain with pleasure at the end, there's some jokes in there to be had. I'm going to demur from doing so. The one thing I want to say is the home from which, or the location from which you're calling us, does not look palatial enough for having revived the careers of world famous musicians. So I need you to go and get yours, Gurp. This can't just be a charitable endeavor for you. You've got to win too. With the rest of my time, I want to give it to JP because I think he's probably got some great questions for you in regards to this.
Yeah, I mean there was a lot in there. I guess since we are like a CS podcast, I'm gonna resist the urge to want to get in because I love music and indie, like all that's great. So what would you say this experience for you is something like you at the end you sort of mentioned teaching, if you can teach these 60-year-olds this thing, are you sort of leaning into this like educational aspect? Like you bring this to maybe to your customers in CS? Like I'm interested in
Yeah,
like you said your
the
personal life
practical.
bleeds over.
Yeah,
I'm interested
the
in that.
the practical application. I think the best thing I've learned from everything I mentioned with my family is you have to be able to do three things to be successful: articulate ROI, speak your champion's language, and number three rather, but I think is actually the most important thing, is challenge the status quo. I think we'll all agree if your customers are happy, they're using whatever product you may be selling, whatever the industry is. Great, that's amazing. But to me, that doesn't push the bar. That will never push the bar because you can have customers who are happy. You can have, anyone who's happy with you, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're challenging them. So I think what I learned from this opportunity to not only help my family and improve myself in my own personal career, but was to be inquisitive, articulate ROI, and speak your champion's language. I prefer clients who are edge cases, who are asking me, okay, but what does the roadmap look like? How are we actually improving the product overall? I don't want to understand just your short and long term goals, but I want to understand what would make you successful a year from now. When I'm speaking to COOs or CTOs, anything it may be, I ask one
Subscribe.
question. I say, amazing, awesome, you seem happy. But tell me, 18 months from now, what would make the board happy? What would you consider success 18 months from now? How can we reverse engineer that to help, number one, provide that feedback to clients, or provide that to our product teams, or provide that maybe to my leadership team, my CEO? And let's use OKRs. Let's use command of the message to promote that, to help grow that, and become your champion. And I think when you align yourself to not just where we are now, of course, everyone's talking about AI. Of course, everyone's talking about how we, acquisitions and how we harness this new world of information and whatever it may be. But what's the practical application of that? How are we actually going to design a plan forward to actually achieve those goals? And if you can measure yourself against that, I think that's actually real success. And I think out of everything I've mentioned so far, articulating ROI, I have to tie it back into the family. For me, it was, hey, family, dad, uncles, you want to be on top of the world again. I'm speaking your language. I'm trying to articulate ROI. Suddenly, you don't have to worry about ticket sales. Suddenly, you don't have to worry about reaching 200 people in a auditorium. You're reaching millions of people. You're doing millions of impressions. You apply that same sentiment to customers. Okay, you're thinking in a silo at the moment. You want to reduce tickets by 30%. But let's actually think of a long-term plan that not only reduces tickets, but helps you extract actionable insights from the people who are actually using your product and making it even stronger. It's a partnership. So that's how I kind of applied it in real life.
Rob, why don't you go?
Totally. Gurp, this is a great mapping. And by the way, it's coming at a good time because I was just talking about how much pain I'm in from a boxing class that I wasn't supposed to be in. That's why I use that Mike Tyson impersonation. JP picked it up. My back is broken. What is it, a vertebrae? Spinal. Anyway. spinal. Anyway, I'll make 2 babies. Enough Mike Tyson. But anyway, no, this has actually been on my mind a ton the last couple of days, because obviously in my work in consulting, I have to do a lot of sales. And what I've learned is that our counterparts in sales are so much more well-trained on some of the fundamentals that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Connecting with the pain, establishing a vision, and drawing that distance, the delta between those two, between the pain and between where the customer wants to be. Now, the difference is in customer success, we often want to shrink that delta. We want to tell customers, you're doing great. You're meeting your goals. You're doing well enough to renew, keep it going. But that doesn't always apply. And that's why when we fumble when it comes to like expansion selling, stuff like that, because we have to kind of flip our strategy. So I've been working a lot on my discovery methodology. And I've been working with a friend of mine who, he's a career salesperson, and setting up a model where we ask those types of questions like the ones you mentioned. Like, if you could ask your customer, what initiatives are you working on? What would make you look like an all-star to your boss? What if we doubled your goals this year? What would happen? Or doubled your capacity this year? What would happen? There's so much value that we can start to suss out when we ask those right discovery questions. And we don't have a ton of time, but I'll just give a quick mention of a friend of mine who's a sales consultant. His name is Scott Leese. He talks about this addiction model of selling, which I think is very compelling. So credit to Scott for this. And he taught me this a long time ago. He basically talks about how, in his story, in his journey, he learned that to get someone to commit to something, they have to go through the same steps that people go through when they overcome addictions. First, they have to admit they have a problem, which a lot of us don't do. Then they have to acknowledge the problem is important enough to address, which a lot of us don't do. We all have problems, but most of them we don't do anything about. So oftentimes people kind of have to hit rock bottom in that discovery process.
Yes.
And then they have to acknowledge that this is a problem we're dealing with right now. And then and only then do you actually even discuss your product you're offering well after you've deeply, deeply discovered the journey that your customer's on. So I'm trying to take a page out of that playbook. It's helping with my product relations as well, because the product team often says, look, we don't want to hear the solution the customer's asking for. We want to hear the pain they're experiencing.
Exactly.
So we have a lot to learn from our other departments.
Gentlemen, that is our time. Gurp, I love this. I love the roller coaster, the story you told. It was fantastic. Would love for you to come back and give us some more practical tips, because I think you've got a really unique way of looking at it. But for now, we do have to say goodbye.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you. Enjoy.
You've been listening to The Daily Stand-Up by Lifetime Value. Please note that the views expressed in these conversations are attributed only to those individuals on this recording and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of their respective employers. For all general inquiries, please reach out via email to hello@lifetimevaluemedia.com. To learn more about advertising on The Daily Stand-Up and the Lifetime Value Media Network, please reach out via email to advertising@lifetimevaluemedia.com. Find us on YouTube at Lifetime Value, and find us on the socials at Lifetime Value Media. Until next time.